Well, we've done Screechers Wild on this channel a couple times now, once before the name and once after the name, so I guess it's only fair we talk about the competition that has now moved into the US thanks to Mattel. This is Mecard, based on the Turning Mecard series that is incredibly popular overseas, and one of the few that I didn't pick up anything for when I was experimenting with these imported last year, mostly because they are like crazy expensive, like way even more expensive than the other ones that I purchased. So yeah, I was actually really happy to see that these actually came out in the States so I could actually give them a fair shakedown. So we are going to look at a couple today. This is Tero, who's not a pterodactyl for some reason. The names seem to have kept some of their original appeal, or the original style, as compared to all the punny names of the new Screechers Wild. As you can see, he is a cute little sports car done up in translucent green plastic with plenty of paint apps going on here. Yellow for the headlights and a few racing stripes. We have trim done in an interesting shade of red. And then that same red is there on the grille as well as the rims and as well as the tail lights. He is done up all the way around. We have some opaque green plastic in play here as well. We will see why once we actually get to the toy itself. So, right off the bat, I can tell you, feels just as good as the Screechers Wild, quality-wise. Again, I'm not worried about the translucent plastic over time, so long as I don't keep it in vehicle mode for too long. And beyond that, yeah, feels pretty good. Now, the transformation for Mecard is, by name you would expect, cards. Now, this is a little bit more interesting than the discs in a way. While the discs I find to be a little bit more versatile, these actually do have a little bit of a game to them. I will admit, the toys themselves didn't come with instructions for the game. You have to go online to their website in order to do that, and I have not had the chance to do that, so I don't know how the game is played. But there is a game aspect to this, and I do appreciate that effort, so that's appreciated. That's kind of cool. So, there's a little bit of metal inside these, there's a magnet in that, and you roll this, you roll the toy over the card, and then the card grabs on, flips around with the toy, and whenever the toy finishes transforming, it will come up holding the card in one way or another. So if we do it with Tero, we get a nice little green dragon guy with a huge tail with a card hanging off of it. So, as you can see, he does a little bit of that flip gimmick from the Screechers Wild, but he doesn't do a full back flip either. He kind of keeps it a little bit more contained. And the dragon we have as a result looks kind of cool. He has this look of like a weird, like freaked out Ninja Turtle thing they would have done in the 90s, where it's like, we're completely out of ideas, let's just make Raphael a dragon. Just because we can. He kind of has that vibe to him, but you know, maybe that's why I picked him out amongst all the others in the stores. So yeah, a lot more opaque green now. This fixes the issue I had with the Screechers Wild. Now I can actually see his details. His dragon legs are completely formed. I can see his arms. They're just kind of dangling there, but they are there. His belly is well designed. And then, yeah, he has that head. Horns, eyes, teeth, all visible. And because it's spring-loaded, he has this, like, accidental, like, snapping bite gimmick. Definitely not intended, but hey, it's there. Now, the bulk of the toy's shell became wings hanging off the arms, as well as that tail, as I mentioned, and hanging off the back of the tail is the card, revealing which one you played to play against your friend. It also revealed a faction sigil. When you get these toys, there is a little piece of paper, a little piece of plastic covering it up. You just peel that off like a sticker, and that will reveal what faction yours is from, which feels completely arbitrary. I'm not sure what the point is, but it could be one of three, and the only difference in those sigils is color. So, I guess there is a point to that, and I don't know whether or not the same toy is always that faction, or if it's randomized, but it's there. So we got to come back to him for very particular reasons, and I'm going to go ahead and fold him back up. Now, the nice thing is he doesn't have like one big effect the same way that a Screechers Wild does, so you don't have to remember that big mousetrap underneath to reconnect them. But all of these are individualized, so you actually do have to keep in mind how each one transforms, and that tells you how to actually transform it back. And with that out of the way, we're going to look at another one from the same size group. This is Momoru, who is actually the subject of this card in particular. Momoru is a translucent brown SUV, looking very dark, but he still has some bright gimmicks. Aside from the same shade of interesting red, it's a very weird, it's a little pale, and it's kind of hard to describe. And the same yellow going on, so a little bit of difference would have been nice. But yeah, taillights are painted, all the windows are painted all the way around. I can't get $20 Transformers to do this most of the time, so that's actually kind of cool. Alright, so yeah, you can see the detailing is mostly for the backside, or what will be the transformed mode. Now, when I found out that Mecard was coming to the US, I was actually curious if they would be releasing any of the more interesting ones, because okay, Tero is a dragon, that's fine. There's a little turtle one that I really kind of want, but all of those, yeah, like I kind of figured. But there's also one that like unfolds into like a very traditional looking Dracula, like white-faced Dracula vampire. And I was curious if they'd be daring enough to release all the weird and interesting ones that were in the lineup. They were. I'm pretty sure if you haven't researched Mecard, you weren't expecting that. So what do we have here? Well, it's Momoru, but really all there is to him is a robot head, one big arm that's flipped out over here, and then a gigantic hand holding onto the card, which I will admit is a really cool thing design-wise. I kind of dig that a lot. That said, what am I looking at? I've got like 30% of a robot going on here, and it certainly isn't the robot that's on the card. Like, on the card, like, he's supposed to have, like, bright yellow eyes and, a body. Here, he kind of looks cyclopsoid. Like, he only has that one big red eye in the middle, and it's clearly meant to be his eye, because there's no yellow or molding for where his eyes would be, just little gaps around the design. It feels like they, had to work him into a completely different design. It's like, I feel like there's some G1 Ironhide level of reimagining going on here to make sense of him. So yes, the design itself, yeah, lots of opaque brown. You can see cracks through this where it looks like he's coming up out of a salt bed, and it feels like the original intent was like this big monster just kind of like crawling out of the earth as like the design concept. At least that's what I'm getting from all the sculpted in cracks and ground details. So yeah, it's interesting. I will give it that. The more interesting thing to me, though, is it barrel rolled in order to transform. It went sideways. So that is where Mecard actually has a big advantage over Screechers Wild, because they do different things besides the back flip. They flip upwards, frontwards, they spin sideways. When they call it turning Mecard, the toy literally turns in different directions. So you have a lot more design variety and a lot more engineering variety, and that's a huge plus. And of course, it does help that these guys are fully painted, which even the larger toys, which the main size class on Screechers Wild had an issue with. Now, just like Screechers, these do come in different size classes, and unfortunately, I didn't purchase any for this review because I don't know, the larger ones are trucks that just kind of stand up into a generic robot mode, and for their price, I genuinely didn't find them worth that. That said, there is a size scale I do own that I could cover quickly. We had to leave the review stage for this one. I have to do this one on the floor because this is going to get big. You can see the size difference already. This is the Mega Teryx. This is the largest size class from Mecard, and I haven't even seen this in the US yet. I've only heard of these being released in Canada so far. This is an import version, which means it's a crazy expensive import for something that's probably coming out in a few months. Oh, I've made good life choices. So I want to show you this because this, I feel, is like where this far eclipses its competition. Just having something like this, aside from the fact It's a really big, really cool truck. Heavy duty, lots of cool details, tons of paint on it. Being the import version, I can't confirm or deny whether or not this is identical to the domestic release, but hey, it's got a ton going on here. That's what's important. Big, big truck mode. Now, I don't want to spend too long on this because the video is going to run long as it is. So hopefully I can get this all in frame because it's getting a little ridiculous. The idea behind these large ones is, my audio is going to get weird here, is you have a ramp that folds out the back. And in order to activate their spring-loaded gimmicks, you need to roll one of the standard-size Mecard toys down the chute. I don't think this is going to work on, say, the larger releases of this line, but your standard, yeah, that's going to be fine. So let me make sure it's in frame because a lot's about to happen here. Typically, let's go for the full effect as long as we're doing this. My audio sounds weird because I'm moving around a lot. Oh my god, it's the end of the world. All right, so I need a card because the idea is you send it down the ramp and that gives it the momentum to slide into the card, and then you get a whole bunch of activation features all at once. So let's send them down. Crazy. So we have a big blue phoenix exploding out of the truck, which is awesome. And also, he didn't transform, so that didn't work as advertised. There he went. So, as you can see, it's a crazy amount of parts exploding out from that truck. It looks completely different. And the truck details actually blend well to become things like the big phoenix wings and whatnot. I love this. I absolutely love this design. And there's a bunch like this. There's a big spider one, too. I want to get that when it comes out. So this is where I feel like Mecard has an enormous advantage of having these giant, only for birthday or Christmas type toys that can take up a lot of shelf space on the racks and really bring attention to the brand in general, because it's very easy to see. These are very tricky to get into vehicle mode, I will say, because on these, like, there's a big little switch there in the bottom, that big white panel. They have to remember to press on to reset everything. But hey, when these come out in the US, this should be a bit of a game changer. But for now, we're only looking at the stuff that's domestically available. Now, the last thing we have to talk about with Screechers Wild. Now, the last thing we have to talk about with Mecard is price. Now, for one of these guys and 3 different cards, and again, I don't know if they're randomized or exclusive to each car or vehicle or whatever you're buying, that's $15. It's $15. Look how small that is. That's nuts. By comparison, there's Revidactyl from Screechers Wild. Same size, a little less paint, $8. So it's almost like, if you really like that card game, then you're paying out almost twice as much for the same size toy. This is the big crux of this toy line that really gets me, and I can't really get past it. They are incredibly expensive for their size and what they do. And now, while I do find it interesting that they all have different ways of being engineered and different designs, I'm also kind of disappointed because none of them are as dynamic or cool looking as the Screechers Wild big backflip. So I find the toys have good balances between each other, but it comes down to that price. Man, that price difference is just so big in this situation. If they were, 20% less, I'd be all about the Mecard, but I don't know, it's hard to recommend them because of that. It's really cost prohibitive. So that is your other flip change toy line on the market today. Hopefully this is not the end, because there's a few more out of China and Korea that I found that are really cool looking. And hopefully these are a little bit more palatable price-wise in the future, because I don't know, Mattel, I think you're reaching here.